In this video, I'm going to show you how can you deploy your ASP.NET Core application on AWS Elastic Beanstalk. Hi, I'm Ankush Jain. I'm a software engineer and I make videos around .NET and AWS. If you want to learn how to deploy your ASP.NET Core application on AWS Elastic Beanstalk, in this video, I will walk you through exactly what you need to do to run your application on Elastic Beanstalk efficiently. You will also learn how much it will cost you to run your application or a .NET application on AWS Elastic Beanstalk. I will also show you how you can perform blue-green deployment using AWS Elastic Beanstalk and achieve zero downtime for your application. Let's get started.
So let's quickly understand the basics of Elastic Beanstalk. So there are certain terms that you should know when you are working with AWS Elastic Beanstalk. So first is application. So this application in AWS Elastic Beanstalk, you create an application, and this application is nothing. If you are having a blog application, you will create a blog application. So it is just representing your application. Second thing is environment. So environment is, you may have multiple environments for your application, like you may have dev, test, production. So this is the same. You can deploy your application into multiple environments. Third thing, application version. Application version is whenever you compile your app and publish the artifacts on server, so it creates a new version. So for example, you have published initial version of your application, then you made some changes, and then you want to deploy a new version. So this is exactly the same thing. Fourth is tier. So AWS Elastic Beanstalk works in two tiers. There is a web tier and another is worker tier. However, we are going to deploy an ASP.NET Core application in this video, so we will be dealing with web tier. But I want to explain you the difference between these two tiers, so that you know that these tiers exist and you can use other tier as well. So if I double click on it, so you can see on the left hand side there is a web environment, on the right hand side there is a worker environment. So Elastic Beanstalk is a service which is managed by AWS, and this service simply says that you just need to deploy your code and rest infrastructure will be managed by us. So all you need to do is, once you create an Elastic Beanstalk environment, after that you just need to deploy your code. And what in background this Elastic Beanstalk creates is what you are seeing right now on the screen. So is it basically creates an auto scaling group. It puts your EC2 instances there. It will automatically place the elastic load balancer in front of your auto scaling group, so that you don't need to manage all these things manually. So it is a complete package that a scaling web application needs, and that is by default available using Elastic Beanstalk. So you don't have to set up each and everything manually. This is the web environment. Second environment is worker environment. It is not always you are having a web application. Sometimes you might be having a worker application. For example, you're sending some messages in SQS and you want those messages to be processed. For example, uh, if you are working on an application where you send OTPs, so you might be sending the messages in SQS, and the workers which are running inside your auto scaling group will be polling the message from SQS and will be doing the job of sending SMS. So these two kinds of environments you can have in your Elastic Beanstalk. So it is good to know like these two environment exist, but in this video we are going to deal with web environment. Second thing, again, deployment modes. So there are two types of deployment modes. One is single instance and second is high availability. So let me double click on this. Okay, so again, it is also very important to understand there are two types of deployment modes exist in Elastic Beanstalk. So on the left hand side, you see single instance. On the right hand side, you see high availability. For example, uh, I am a small enterprise. I don't want to spend so much cost, because I don't want to have elastic load balancer. I don't want to have or multiple EC2 instances or an RDS database. I just want that my application should run on a single EC2 instance, and for now that is sufficient for me, because AWS will charge you for all these resources. So it will charge you for elastic load balancer if you are having multiple instances in your auto scaling group. So however, Elastic Beanstalk don't have a separate cost, but it will charge the cost of all the other components that is running on your on its behalf. So if you have a requirement like where you have your website is not having much traffic or have significant amount of traffic and you can live with single instance, so you can choose this first deployment mode. And in this video, I will also show you a practical demonstration of deploying a .NET application on this single instance. So where we will get a single EC2 instance and we will get a Elastic IP which will be free of cost because that would be attached with the EC2 instance. If we are having an Elastic IP which is not attached to an EC2 instance, then it would cost you, but our IP will be attached to the EC2, so you won't be paying any charge for this. Yeah, one more thing, Elastic Beanstalk also supports to adding a database, RDS database, when you create it. So I will show you how you can add it, but normally it is recommended to not include RDS database in Elastic Beanstalk, because what happens when we delete Elastic Beanstalk, it will also delete the database as well. So ideally it is recommended to keep the database separate. So we won't go much there in detail, but again, I just wanted to share this video. There are two deployment mode that exist in Elastic Beanstalk. So now let's talk about the cost, estimated monthly cost. So this is very important factor. Like everyone who wants to run the application on AWS want to know that how much it will cost in the end of the month. So if you want to run your application on AWS Elastic Beanstalk, how much it will cost to you. So let's explore this. So as I said, we will be using single EC2 instance in Elastic Beanstalk. So we will be using that deployment mode, and in that deployment mode, our cost will be only of of two resources. So one is EC2 and another is Elastic IP. And as I said, Elastic IP is free because if I have provided the link here, you can go and here you can go through this link to understand how the Elastic IP is being charged. Second thing, we should worry about the pricing of EC2 instance. So we will be running one EC2 instance in the background. So you can go click on this link and visit this website. In this website, you will find all the instances and you can calculate the price of your EC2 instance. So I have selected Asia Pacific Mumbai region where I am residing, and here from here if you want to have an EC2 which is having at least 2 GB RAM, so you can select minimum memory 2, and you want that at least 2 CPU should be there. So these are the instances which are having more than the configuration that you have specified. So if I select the cheapest one, T4G small, so how much we have to pay? So we can select here monthly, and after this I can see that yeah, on demand I have to pay $8.17 monthly to if I am running this easy to instance in my Elastic Beanstalk. So now we are going to create an Elastic Beanstalk application or Elastic Beanstalk instance in our AWS console. Go to your AWS console, type Elastic Beanstalk in the search bar. You will get Elastic Beanstalk here. Click on this and you will end up on this page. On this page, select application, create application, or you can also click here and you can create an application here. This application is the same application that I showed you earlier in the basics here. So if you are having an e-commerce application, just create an application and provide a name for this. Okay. Here environment, here select web environment, web server environment, the same as I explained you earlier. In the application, I am just providing it name as .NET, or I mean sample e-commerce app. Okay, so this is my e-commerce application. Environment information, I am just providing this environment as a dev env. Okay, sample e-commerce app dev env. Now in the platform, I am selecting managed platform. I am selecting .NET Core on Linux, and inside this I have only one option, so select that, and platform version 2.5.5. Now you might be thinking how this 2.5.5 will support .NET 6 or .NET 3.1. So you can click on this and you can go here, By the way, I will provide a link of this Notion website on the description, so you can, from there you can go to this page. So now you can see that for .NET version 2.5.5 supported framework .NET 6 and .NET 3.1. So you don't have to worry that whether .NET 6 will work there or not. It will work. So now select 2.5.5 and then application code. We are not going to upload the code right away, but uh, select simple application. So Beanstalk will deploy a simple .NET Core application there. In the presets, we are selecting single instance. So we are not selecting high availability. Just click next. Okay, in the service access, so just click create and use new service role. So this will create an IAM role, and this will allow Beanstalk to do whatever it wants to do. And then instance profile. So instance profile, we have to select an IAM role. So as of now, we will have to create an IAM role, and we have to attach that IAM role to this instance profile. So I will type IAM, and inside IAM I will create an Beanstalk role. So here I will go roles. I will create a role. Trusted entity AWS service. I will select EC2 because this role will be assumed by EC2. Then here just type Beanstalk, and here you can select Elastic Beanstalk web tier, worker tier, and multi-container Docker. So these will be sufficient to get started. So you can add these permissions, select next, and then I will provide AWS Elastic, or I can just say beans beanstalk IAM role. Okay, yeah, beanstalk IAM role, and I will just select create role. So the role is getting created. Meanwhile, I will role is so role creation is done. So I will close this, and I will. So here I can see Beanstalk IAM role. I will select that role. Then we'll click on next. Inside VPCs, just select the VPC where you want to create this Beanstalk instance. And for instance settings, just select all the availability zone so that you know it can create the instance in its preference. Just select this activated. For the database, as I earlier said, that we can also create an RDS database using Elastic Beanstalk, but we are not willing to do that in this video, so we will keep this as it is, and then we will click on next. Okay, so instance, now it is asking me which instance I want. I mean, what should be the configuration of instance. So I am going with the default EC2 security group. I will select the default security group. I will later check whether this is allowing request on port 80 or not, but for now just select the default. And yeah, I'm selecting on demand instance, and here it will ask which instance I want to create. So in the capacity section it will ask, so I will just say that I want T3 micro or T3 small, or you can select any instance that is your specific preference, so you can select that instance type here. Okay, now I will select next. So we are on fourth step. I will keep the monitoring settings as it is. I will not touch it. I will not touch it. I will not touch anything. I will not touch anything. And here it will be using proxy server nginx. So I will not touch this as well. I will click next. And here on the last page you can review all the settings that you have done. So I will scroll down to the bottom. I will click on submit. So role with name AWS Elastic Beanstalk service role already exists, so maybe I don't know, because I had created an Elastic Beanstalk earlier, so let me go back and see. Okay, so yeah, I got the issue. So earlier this role was created when I created another Beanstalk earlier, so now I can uh, I will select use an existing role, and from there I can select the role that was created earlier. So that was the issue, and I can skip to review, and then I will just scroll down and close this error and click on submit button. So now this Elastic Beanstalk is getting launched. So I will pause my video and will be back once it is done. So the deployment is now finished, and you can see the health is okay and the application has been deployed. And I have also received a domain URL. So if I click on this, and it says that your first AWS Elastic Beanstalk .NET Core application is running, and this is the URL, this is the domain it has used for dev environment, and we have created our first sample .NET application on Elastic Beanstalk. So now the deployment for our Elastic Beanstalk is successful. So as a next step, what we are going to do, we are going to create a sample application from our Visual Studio, and we are going to deploy that sample application on existing Elastic Beanstalk instance. So for that, I will proceed towards step 2, configure Visual Studio with AWS Toolkit. So now I will show you how to configure AWS Toolkit in Visual Studio. If I close this, then I can go here in view and I can select AWS Explorer and it will reappear. Now to install this, you just have to search on Google AWS Toolkit for Visual Studio. Click on the first link, select the download button on whatever Visual Studio you are using, and install the package which it will download, or install the exe or installer uh, that will be downloaded on your machine. So once Visual Studio Toolkit is downloaded and installed on your machine, you just have to close your Visual Studio and reopen it. After that, you can see this AWS Explorer in your Visual Studio. So the next thing is how to configure credential, how this Visual Studio Toolkit will know that I have to connect with your AWS account or your AWS services. So for that, you have to provide credentials here. So you can just click on this add AWS credential profile. You have to provide some name to your profile, and you have to create an IAM user in your AWS account and generate security credential. And after generating security credential, you have to provide those access key ID and secret access key here, and just press OK. Once you do that, this Visual Studio would be able to communicate with AWS API and will be able to get all the information in this Explorer. So for example, I have selected my default profile here, and if I select on Elastic Beanstalk, it is able to identify that I have created a simple e-commerce application in my Elastic Beanstalk in my AWS account. So this is how you can download, install AWS Toolkit and configure it with your credentials. So the next step, which is step 3, in this step, what we are going to do, we are creating a simple .NET application. We will create a simple ASP.NET Core MVC application and deploy that application from our Visual Studio to Elastic Beanstalk. So as of now, you are seeing this application right now, which is running on Beanstalk instance. We are going to replace this application with our new application. So let me go here and I will select new project, and I here select ASP.NET Core MVC, or I can do MVC. Oh, sorry. I will, yeah, ASP.NET Core MVC. Yeah, I will select next. I will select, yeah, web application 1. Name doesn't matter. I'll select next. .NET 6. I will not configure it for HTTPS, otherwise it may throw error. Now I will select create. So the application is getting created, and okay, I'm pausing this video and we'll be back once application is ready. So now the application has been created. What we are going to do, we will just right click on this. We will select publish to AWS Elastic Beanstalk Legacy, and we'll click here. Oh, let me see what options appears here. Publish to AWS. So because there are two ways to deploy this application on AWS. So one is the legacy wizard, and another is the latest wizard. So publish to existing target. So it has detected that we have existing target, which is a Elastic Beanstalk environment, and we just need to click publish, and then application will be deployed. Okay. The second option is to select this publish to Elastic Beanstalk legacy, where we will get this wizard, and we'll get this option redeploy to an existing environment. However, we can create a new environment from Visual Studio itself. We don't have to go to AWS Cloud Console and through web. We can do that from here as well. But it is better to go there and set up everything. So I will just select this, and I will select this. I will click next, and here I will select Nginx as I showed you earlier, and I will select finish, or I will select, sorry, next, and then I will click on deploy. And now I will wait for the deployment to finish. So you can see on the bottom .NET publish, it is first publishing my application, and then after publishing it will deploy the application to Elastic Beanstalk. So you can see, I mean, if you have noticed, you will see that it is first uploading the artifacts to S3 bucket, and from that S3 bucket it is going to copy the artifact into the Elastic Beanstalk. So now it has provided us this URL, which is the same. So what I will do, I will just copy this URL and open in a new tab. Okay, it is not changing. So okay, let me click on this. Okay, it is not changing. Okay, as of now, the status is updating, so it has not updated yet. So we will wait for this status to change, and then we will check our website again. So now the status has been changed and environment is healthy. I will go back to my Beanstalk URL. I will just refresh, and you can see the web application one is now running on our Beanstalk environment. So that's how easy it is to deploy an application from our local Visual Studio to Elastic Beanstalk. So now we are in the last segment of this video where we will be doing blueprint deployment. So as of now, we have a development environment in our Elastic Beanstalk. Now what we will do, we will create another environment which would be our production environment. So after that, we will have two environments. One is development, another is production. So what we will do, we will perform blue-green deployment by changing or swapping the URL. So what will happen, for example, I have tested all my code on my development, and now I want that this development machine, or I mean, I have tested all my code on this development environment, which is DEVENV, and I want that now production URL should point to this machine. So it can happen with just one click in Elastic Beanstalk. So we will see that practically in few seconds. So now let's create another environment. So I will just select the application. I will create another environment. So here I will select the name. I will select web server environment. I will application name will be the same. Here I will provide this name to prod. Okay, and managed platform.NET Core on Linux, and simple application, single instance, and next I will use existing role. Here I also will use Beanstalk IAM role that I created. Then next, and here I will select VPC, and then we'll do this, select all, and now I will just click on skip to review, and we'll scroll to bottom, and we'll click on submit, and we'll wait by the time this environment is launched. So I'm pausing my video and will resume once this Elastic Beanstalk environment is created. So now my instance is launched, and I have so now my production instance is launched, and I can access this with. So now my EC2 instance production environment is launched, and I can access that from this link. So you can see Elastic Beanstalk. So this is the fresh web page, and this is our dev instance where our dev application is running. So now I want to show you how this blue-green deployment happens, and the the intention of having these kind of deployment is, to achieve zero downtime. So for example, your development team is working on another application, I mean on the upgrades of the same application, and they have deployed, they are making changes and deploying on your development environment, and they are testing the changes from this link. And now you want that testing has happened and everything is working fine on this development environment. What you want to do, you want to point this production environment which is running a v1 version of your application, and you want to point this domain to this application which is the v2 version of your application. So how you will do that? So you just need to go here and you just need to, okay, you just need to select the environment. So inside the environment, forget about this, select the production environment, click on actions, swap environment domain, click on this, and here you have to select the environment from which you want to swap it. So you will select the dev environment and you just click swap. And what happens in background, it AWS does some DNS related changes. After those changes, this URL will basically point to your v2 version of your application, which is this, and dev with this dev URL will point to this application. Okay, so we'll wait for this to complete and then I will show you how this looks like. Okay, so I don't need to pause this video. So now if I reload this, it should point to our web one. So you can see it is now pointing to the web application one which we deployed on development environment, and this is prod environment. So our changes will appear here, and now our v1 version which was running earlier on production will has been now moved to our development environment. So if I refresh this, you can see this is displaying the v1 version of our application. So this is how you can perform blue green deployment, and what will happen, your application will not go down, and you, once you are confident that you have tested all the changes on your other environment, then you can just swap the URL and you can get benefit of this feature which is present in Elastic Beanstalk.
You just saw that how easily you can deploy your ASP.NET Core application on AWS Elastic Beanstalk. As a next step, what you can do, you can go to your AWS console and create a Elastic Beanstalk instance, and go to your Visual Studio, create a new custom application, and try to deploy that new custom ASP.NET Core application on AWS Elastic Beanstalk. This will give you confidence of running your workloads on AWS. Thanks for watching this video. If this video is useful to you, then please hit like button and subscribe my channel for more such content.